Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 4 from the Chief Seats, brought to you by Spedrock Productions. If you, I know you're gonna have to put, no, that way. Hit the hashtag right there. All of my socials are right there in the hashtag. Uh, it's been a long 2 weeks since I've been on here. Had some personal tragedy. My sister Christina, as I like to call her, my sister from another mister, and don't kind of try to take that any which way, but the way it should be. Um, this was a friend of mine for the longest time, about 30 years. She succumbed to her demons, and it's it's quite ironic that she was the one that told me to get myself right mentally, and just for me to lose her um, in the fashion that we did. Now, I am not a believer. I'm not a believer in the whole, having our health thing as far as where a person should go. Her acts were enough to owe her a spot right there in the better cheap seats up there in heaven than any day in hell. Um, Secondly, I'm gonna pay tribute to Ted Turner. For Ted Turner, we wouldn't have had TNT and TBS or WTBS as it was originally known. We wouldn't have had the Atlanta Braves on a major network, kind of being the catalyst for the Cubs and marquee sports, as well as regional sports networks. If it had not been for Ted Turner, ultimately, had it not been for Ted Turner, we would have never had the Monday Night Wars, WCW Nitro, WCW Thunder, WCW Saturday Night, WCW Worldwide on WGN. I know I'm throwing something out there that has not been, or WCW Chicago actually, before it became worldwide. Jack Brickhouse, big Chicago staple, was usually a rotate in broadcaster on that show, along with Gordon Sully every once in a while before WCW tend to let them two loose and go with Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross and Jesse Ventura, leading up to Eric Bischoff and Larry Zabisco, as well as Bobby the Brain Heenan, being the ones that narrated the stories later on in WCW's tenure as a wrestling company. In later years, Ted Turner has provided us CNN, other avenues of media and entertainment that now soon to be going to Paramount, under the Warner Brothers Discovery deal, this merger that they've been putting together. I'm not going to sit there and talk about the minutia that's talked about online. I'm not going to give anybody by the name of this, that, and everything else any headway. So I'm here to talk about wrestling. I'm here to talk about what I see, what I think, and oh yeah, he did give us Cartoon Network. He also did give us Captain Planet and the Planeteers. So, um, with that being said, where do I want to start? I'm gonna go ahead and just go the first 10 minutes with WWE. I'm going to speak on Backlash a little bit that is scheduled tonight in Tampa, Florida, at the Benchmark International Arena. Hi, Corey. Uh, Hope all is well. Corey Hayes, I'm going to give him a quick shout out. He does some pretty damn good news reporting when it comes to professional wrestling, regardless of the company. Several of the members, Relo, and others that have left Body Slam, and this is not a diss on Body Slam. This is more of us just saying hi to our friends. I know they're going to get back on their feet. They're going to continue to provide quality wrestling news and talk wherever they land. Going to Backlash, we have 5 matches on this card, should have 6, but, I'm not the booker. I'm going to go with what I think is going to start tonight, kind of heat the moment. It's going to be the tag team match with Danhausen and his mystery partner versus The Miz and Kit Wilson. If you can come up with a good name, a tag team name for Kit Wilson and Miz, I might actually buy and send something to somebody. You just put it in the chats. It's gonna give me the opportunity to kind of have fun with the broadcast here. Let's see here. We all know that Danhausen is more based to build merch money than he is to be entertaining on TV. But since he came to WWE in the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in a boxed-up coffin, he's actually built quite a following. I mean, the man actually had a segment at WrestleMania. Who did we even predict that come February when that segment even happened? No. And Miz tends to be the best to put people that are just starting in the company, kind of seeing where they're at. Miz is good at what he does. He's able to put somebody over. He makes them look like $1 million. That's why people want to work with him instead of, just trying to jump into the deep end. After they get done with doing the deep end stuff, yes, and I don't disagree. 2 of the matches are going to be on ESPN2 tonight, while the other 3 are on the ESPN Unlimited app. I get that ESPN is trying to build up their fan base. I mean, hell, they had almost 2 million viewers for both nights of WrestleMania. People are watching. Some are just not tech adept to the things in the world in regards to setting up their TVs, benefiting from whatever deals their cable provider has set up with ESPN and Disney. Going back to that tag team match, who do I think is going to be Danhausen's partner? Well, Monday I could have seen Obafemi Hausen, but I think it's going to be CM Punkhausen under the Gingerbread Man gimmick. Everybody just waiting for that wonderful GTS to hit either Kit Wilson or The Miz. Which, I mean, this could play a little bit into Miz and CM Punk's past issues if you really wanted to go that far. I mean, against Sami Zayn. Now, and I know Stampede hates the Gingerbread Man gimmick. It's wasted time on TV, but that's not to sit there and say that, at points and in increments it hasn't been a little funny. Like, I caught myself laughing a couple times last night when they were leading up to the funeral at the end of the show. Sammy is good with playing the heel type that he plays. I mean, he's actually quite compelling, and he can make chicken salad out of chicken shit any day of the week in regards to the ludicrousness, because I can't think of the other word I want to use, of any storyline moment, and just turn it into something that, fans will get over, or fans will like in the end, because, hey, he's the foil. I don't see Trick Williams dropping the title back to Sammy this quick. No. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? Because, the momentum Trick has right now, he's going to go somewhere with that championship. It's not going to be necessarily an open challenge championship as much anymore under Trick, but he's going to put some legs under that championship in regards to the matches he has with people and the feuds that he gets in. I mean, we're going to be awaiting Ilya Dragunov. We're going to be waiting Carmelo Hayes and him. You know, there's quite a few on the roster, minus the cuts recently, that Trick can get into a match with. I mean, heck, if they really want to see where Jimmy Uso's legs are, let him start with the U.S. Championship like his brother did with the Intercontinental Championship. You know, I'm not going to sit there and say that Jay was the best Intercontinental Champion in the world. That he was, you know, X, Y, and Z. I'm not. There have been plenty of, but it was good to see where he could get initially with that championship. You know, it set up bringing in Braun Breaker. It set up other things as far as where that Intercontinental Championship went in the course of the show. Now, I mean, Penta has been a good ambassador for that Intercontinental Championship. And he's been riding those waves of the Braun Breakers. And just wait till Bronson Reed gets back. That's somebody I see getting into some graps with Penta when he returns. But I see Trick Williams retaining. And it's going to be a match that you're going to have fun with. Next match I see up on this card, and like I said, I'm doing this. It's not in order of match. It is what it is, and yes, sometimes they're deep in. It is a kiddie pool with a slow leak. Right now, what can you say about the WWE releases that haven't already been said? There were some that kind of blew your mind, like why? You know, they were being forecasted for prominent feuds. The whole rigmarole that's been pretty much shot down about TKO not liking darker characters. You know, I mean, we've heard 100 stories since these 2 weeks of releases. I'm just going to sit there and say that TKO had what they had in mind, and they went with it. It's unfortunate if people have to be unemployed. They're going to find new work. Their own bodies of work and other companies will get them where they need to go. Whether it's MLW, MLPW up there in Canada, whether it's TNA, AAA. I mean, mind you, AAA is a WWE owned entity now. AEW, New Japan. There's so many options for all these talent that are no longer with WWE. That, you know, they're not going to be gone for long. The 90 days is going to wear, or their expirations are going to go bye-bye. And that's that. Now, another point that Stampede just brought up is that WWE is hurting itself with, I would say, the more ardent fan, the more knowledgeable fan, by only throwing out 25 minutes or 25% of their television dedicated to actual wrestling. You know, don't get me wrong. If the story segments, the talk segments are story specific, they're meant to lead to something within the show. That's what the Attitude Era was really good about. Was if you're focusing on this one major story, you're going to sit there and you're gonna give your attention to it. You're not gonna want to flip the channel to Monday Nitro to see Hulk Hogan finger poking Kevin Nash into a flat back 1, 2, 3. Just to give it, you're gonna listen to Tony Schiavone and be like, oh, you know what? That match in Worcester, Mass, where Mick Foley won the WWE Championship. Now, mind you, I say that when I get into the AEW portion of all this, it's gonna make sense. Next match I see on the card going up is a grudge match between Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker being advocated, managed, oracled, whatever you want to call it, what Paul Heyman does, on for the Vision. I don't even know if I don't even know if the Vision really exists other than throwing up the Titantron and the music and calling it a day. I'm just that where is that going? Yes, Bronson is out. He's injured. Cool. But where is the Vision going? You know, Logan Paul's got his issues with Joe Hendry. I mean, a tag team's coming after a singles wrestler. Who's Joe Hendry going to bring in? Drew McIntyre, the boys from Gallus? Fellow Scots. Drew is gone on Highlander and probably coming back a heel, so that would make sense. So, getting back to Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, you got enough to where Seth Rollins can make Braun Breaker's weaknesses look like $1,000,000. And there's very few weaknesses Braun Breaker has. As well, Seth and Braun have enough natural chemistry in regards to coming at each other that match is going to be hard hitting for the minute the bell rings to the minute the 1, 2, 3 slaps the mat. I see Braun Breaker winning this one to continue the feud, probably into Italy. But I would not be shocked if there isn't some chicanery with aforementioned Logan Paul, Austin Theory, the Street Profits, Joe Hendry, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and probably a partridge in a pear tree. We'll see how they book this one, but partridge in a pear tree is probably getting a run in. After that is another grudge match. Is something that we should have had on WrestleMania, that we asked for to be on WrestleMania, that we didn't get on WrestleMania, that we got one of the parts of the story cut before it was, finished. Io Sky, the genius of the sky, against her senpai, Asuka. Now, Kana and Io Shirai, or as we know them, Asuka and Io Sky, have a very storied history. Io Sky's senpai, which is in Japanese is your senior. It is your mentor, your senior. It's not exactly your sensei, but you follow them, you learn from them, you kind of see what they're doing. That's what the whole senpai storyline has been about between those two. Kairi is of the same ilk, in that both of them followed under Asuka. Now, I will say this. It's going to be a very interesting match. I think it's going to be a very emotional match. Now, there's been rumors that they're going to pay Kairi a one-off to show up, put over Io by screwing Asuka, and moving on from there. Do I see that happening that way? And by the way, Sped says that there is some bad weather up his way. So, just so you know, Point Taken and the Territory, our new review show for all the wonderful independent territories that still run wrestling outside of your major companies, is still due to happen, but we're going to play it by ear. Today, we're going to hopefully see you at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central for Point Taken, as well as 7, 6 Central for the Territory as we review Out of Houston, Texas, Booker T's Reality of Wrestling, which is a WWID product. But ultimately, I think Io gets the deuce on this. Io's gonna move on from Asuka. There's quite a few coming up from NXT that she can scrap with and start to get those storylines set. Let's see, y'all. And then to finish the show, you got Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu. Now, is this a new era of the Bloodline feuds, the Bloodline Civil War? I think this is an arm and extension of that. You have your MFTs over on SmackDown Jacob, I think, is getting ready to set up his own ergo horrible term to use street crew. You kind of see the teases with Powerhouse Hobbs or Royce Keys. You know, the rumor, since a certain somebody will be in Tampa today signing autographs at a show there. Um, and I'm not going to put out his name because I would rather the shock of the moment be there than. But it's a family member with the same last name, Fatu. Do I see this possibly becoming more of an Anoa'i versus Fatu war? Could the Usos be setting up the tribal chief to be stabbed in the back? There are people that want Jacob to win. There are people that are, that Roman's going to retain. With how Roman's schedule has changed in the last about a month, even though he said full-time tribal chief, it wouldn't shock me if Jacob were to win, whether by some chicanery or by his own effort, or and goes on down to Italy, and then you see Roman and Jacob again, and Roman takes back the belt. Big Mike, it is a happy Backlash Day. It's also happy Reality Wrestling Day. Hopefully happy Point Taken Day. His Spag can get his power back in time. We're going to have to buy that man a generator up there in Pennsylvania, up there in the mountains of Pennsylvania. I'm not smack talking you, Sped. It's just, you're rural. We need to buy you a generator. That's what we'll raise the money for when Spedrock becomes profitable. We'll get Sped a generator. But yeah, no, I honestly think that you're getting now going into the seventh inning of the era of the Bloodline. I think these are the last three innings of what we were discussed as a 9-inning game for the Bloodline saga. So Jacob may be setting up a Fatu Anoa'i war within the Bloodline. How does the Tongans fit? There's more Fatus in professional wrestling than there are Anoa'is, unless you include Lance. And Lance just left NXT. So, how did they set this up? It's going to be interesting. My heart says Jacob and New. My mind, because WWE isn't going to necessarily let the reins off the cash cow yet. Roman retains. So, I'm going to be interested to watch that match, see how that goes, and see if the Tongan Death Grip doesn't get watered down. Now, let's see here. What was there other things about WWE that I wanted to get off my chest? It goes back to something Stampede said. Yes, we get that you're booking for your casual fans. We do. We understand it. We're not necessarily saying that you shouldn't, because you want to get new eyes on the product. Taking shots, people, I think we've moved far past enough taking shots at other companies. The WrestleMania mention of Ring of Honor for CM Punk. And Ring of Honor is an AEW owned entity. Now, mind you, if you go to Honor Club and you try to resource CM Punk's matches or matches before 2011, you're not going to get anything from at least some big Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Claudio Castiglione eras, as well as the Nigel McGuinness and American Dragon, Bryan Danielson era stuff on there. You might see it, but the last time I was on Honor Club, there was no access to that before 2011. Um, but WWE needs to put more wrestling content on their shows. Figure out a way with their commercial sponsors, with ESPN, with TKO, with Netflix, how to fit less commercial and more less sizzle, more steak. You know, we don't want a variety show on Raw, SmackDown. We don't. You know, yes, it's good to laugh every once in a while with the Danhausen or an R-Truth. But, you know, we'll let the potatoes that, you know, make the meal be the side. We want wrestling content. We want to see wrestling matches, more natural flow matches. I'm not sitting there saying that I'm going to advocate for Japanese style no cells. As I've stated, I am not necessarily the biggest fan, but there are instances, thanks to Stampede, where, you know, the no cell into those big moves to where the adrenaline rush disappears and all you're left is them kind of struggling to get back up to finish the fight. I could see WWE hopefully getting away from the Vince McMahon era of how they set up their stuff, the cookie cutter. You know, that's what I think WWE needs. Get away from the cookie cutter. Set a new standard. Don't be, you know, hey, Vince did this and it worked for Vince. Hey, it still can work for us, because I guarantee you're going to turn off more fans to AEW. You're going to literally sell Honor Club and New Japan World and trying to get a VPN to watch TSN in July for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. I love watching everything. I love watching New Japan. I love watching AEW. I love watching TNA and AAA and CMLL and ultimately WWE. I mean, getting to buy Honor Club to watch Global Wars between Ring of Honor and Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. It's a great show. You know, I want to get myself into more of the Total Joshi Pro Wrestling out of Japan. Same thing with Noah. You know, you get to see the highlights on a YouTube or through partner programming. But I've got a friend, aforementioned Stampede, has probably watched more wrestling matches, or does watch more wrestling matches in 1 year than a lot of you watching this have watched in your entire life. That should tell you something. You know, the man's a walking encyclopedia. He's able to kind of give you a history and a nod to all the stuff. Yes, the eye candy, Sped. The eye candy, the stuff that we're getting. We want to be sugared up, but we want to be sugared up by the action. We want to be sugared up by being able to go, oh, wow, that was a good match. What's coming next? You know, not fluff and stuff. I mean, fluff and stuff is good for freaking cotton candy. Not X, Y, and Z. You know, we want sizzle. We want steak. We want the anticipation of the first bite. We want to be able to say at the end of the match, oh, that's a good piece of meat. As a fine piece of business, as a certain Oklahoman north of me used to say when he was on TV very often. AEW. Now, let me speak on AEW real quick. AEW is in the midst of a really good run. And for anybody to kind of smack talk them and talk them down, I'm sorry, but I don't think you know what you're talking about. Until Paramount, Warner Brothers, or AEW says otherwise to their media rights, what's going on, quit believing all the nonsense and the hype. You know, oh, they got told that they're gonna get cut as soon as the merger's over. Nobody has said that, and the ones that are saying that have no clue what they're talking about until the powers that be say otherwise. Yes, TKO has a product on Paramount, that being UFC. If David Ellison and Larry Ellison, who are the current owners of Paramount and the future owners of Warner Brothers, have their way, they may just keep AEW to add one more sports event that they can make money off of media rights wise. And yeah, that deal goes for, I think, 2027, 2028 at the latest. You know, there was a lot of times back then that you didn't. I mean, look at ESPN and Fox. More ESPN now than Fox, but ESPN has Super Bowl rights. But then during the spring, they also still air the UFL. The UFL, the United Football League, has become more of your proving ground and your test theory apparatus in regards to football for rules that may be used in CFL or the NFL. The kickoff, which has led to less concussions and less head injuries, less major injuries during regular NFL kickoffs, has actually been a good thing. Yeah, people are going to hate it, but guess what? If that means less time for your favorite player on the injured list, so be it. But yeah, you know, people are not going to like the NFL just like they're not going to like the UFL. It happens. But it is a money maker. People do watch spring football. People watch college baseball and softball. Shockingly enough, people diss those two, and I'm like, sometimes they're better than their major league counterparts. You know, I'm not going to disagree with Sped. Sped said something to the fact that AEW still has enough routes and venues if they do leave. I mean, Peacock, I don't think would be afraid, because we know eventually SmackDown is likely going to Netflix as well. And with NXT having resources between the CW app and being simulcasted, their live, premium live event broadcast being simulcasted for more rural audiences through the ESPN app, AEW is not going to be hurting if they have to indeed leave the Warner product. Do I think they will? Time will find out. Ratings. Guess what? It's playoff season. That's the reason why ratings are hurting for all wrestling products. That wrestling shows might get watched down, because guess what? Yes, professional wrestling is a predetermined sport. Yes, the referees, the match writers, the talent in the ring know who's going to win ahead of time. There are sometimes that they throw a curveball and call the winner in the ring, just to see how it rides with the audience. But to sit there and say that these ratings are declining. Look, America's in the midst of a war with Iran. NXT's rating was affected by preemptions in markets, as well as the 500 billion news conferences that the government were trying to get out, and those markets preempted regular programming for stuff. Same thing with AEW. The NHL and NBA playoffs are being played literally on every night during a week. You know, they're into the semifinal rounds, but still, people are going to prioritize, oh, hey, it's football, baseball, basketball, hockey, X, Y, and Z. Then wrestling. So, a lot are. You're casuals. will do that because they haven't been ingrained enough, like true hardcore fans, to sit there and go, you know what? I'd rather watch wrestling than I'd watch I could catch the other ones on DVR. You know, a lot of your casual fans have kind of learned from your hardcore fans, hey, DVR this stuff. Sometimes DVR ratings do still count to the Nielsen ratings, but it should not matter whether, NXT or AEW on a Dynamite or a regular NXT episode only get 5,500,000 fans that watch the show. Guess what? There's 22 weeks also of broadcast episodic television that these networks put out. You get the point. That is something that I don't think people get. Is yes, you're going to have low ratings sometimes. It doesn't mean that people aren't interested. It just means that they're up against other compelling television that might take an interest. But that doesn't say that the current fan isn't sitting there setting their DVR. Now, Dynamite and Collision had a super show this week. And one of the matches on said show was Kevin Knight versus Darby Allin. Now, Darby Allin is a damn good wrestler, and if you think otherwise, I got a bridge in Arizona to sell you in regards to oceanfront property. Because you're selling yourself short, and you sell yourself a false bill of goods to think that Darby Allin can't put butts in seats. I mean, let's go back to the show that he beat MJF with the 4 coffin drops and won the AEW Heavyweight Championship at. I guarantee you that 90% of the butts and seats in Everett, Washington were because of Darby Allin. Or Nick Wayne. I mean, can't hate on Nick Wayne. But pretty good chance that your Washington state-born wrestlers were a good reason why a lot of that crowd came out to watch them. AEW produces television that isn't talk heavy. They let the talk happen in the ring. It's something that I think compels a lot of people right now is the Death Riders Will Ospreay storyline. What are we gonna get? What are we gonna get from that? Are we gonna get Will Ospreay the Death Rider? Now you have the Ops, and with Samoa Joe having an opinion on the route that Will Ospreay is taking. You have United Empire. Where does Will fit in the current model of the United Empire? I mean, we're already seeing the prince that was promised, Callum Newman, on his upward rise to being said emperor of the United Empire in the long term. And more than likely, a run at Will Ospreay in the not-so-distant future. Tekla. Yeah, Tekla says some things that put some people off. Cool. Guess what? Wrestling is meant to be bombastic. Wrestling is meant to be the most turned up, on a boombox, stereo, whatever you want to call it, entertainment center version of the person that's on that television. That woman is uber talented, can speak so many damn languages. I'm jealous that she can speak those languages. She is educated. She's a rock star, legitimately. If you have a chance to listen to her band, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's a pretty good death metal band, and I'm not a very big fan of death metal, so that should tell you something when I like them. But she is making the women's division in AEW stand out. quality matches with Alex Winter, with Jamie Hayter. That match against Jamie Hayter at Destiny. Oh my God, it was good. I mean, I wasn't. I don't know and get compelled for women's matches, but those are two women in AEW that outside of like Tony Storm and Chris Statlander, I could watch slap each other all day and go do a Broadway and be just entertained by it. Plus they're young lions. I mean, Darby Allin and Kevin Knight had a match this week. Your two top champions in AEW. Because, you know, the TNT title existed long before any of the other auxiliary titles below it. So, you know, I consider that your two top champions. It was a great exhibition between Darby Allin and Kevin Knight. You would be legitimately shocked that we as a wrestling fandom would be enthralled and entertained by that, and we were. Kevin Knight, Ergos, Leon Slater of TNA, Javon Evans of WWE. These kids are the future, and they're making their mark and standing out at such a young age to be able to suck us into the moment. It's going to be interesting how this year finishes for all companies, but AEW I think is going to continue to ride the high. WWE is going to have to understand that TKO can't necessarily pull all the strings. Otherwise, you're going to push so many people away. These deals with Netflix and with ESPN are going to disappear as soon as they're finished. And you got a 5-year deal with ESPN. You're on year 2 of a deal with Netflix. You're on year 2 of the new deal with Comcast Universal. Be more outstanding than underwhelming is the point I'm making. With that being said, I'm not going to go too entirely long today. I'm going to probably cut this at right about 50 after the hour. But I'm going to rant a little bit. And I'm going to put over my boss, my El Jefe, Sped, as well as the rest of the crew that I work with here at Spedrock Productions and on from the cheap seats. You know, you've got Big Mike. You've got Stampede, the Stampedia Britannica of professional wrestling. Carlos, Mob, our extended family members, Crystal, as well as Brains and Tori of Kicking Out at 2. We get to enjoy the buffet, as Mike normally calls it, of professional wrestling. We give you the honest opinion versus trying to fill you up with fluff and nonsense. It's not who we are. It's not where we go with this. It's not our desire to sell you a bill of goods that's going to underdeliver and hardly ever perform. As I was saying, depending on the weather up there in wonderful rural Pennsylvania in the mountains, you're going to get beyond here. You're going to get Point Taken, which is one of the fastest growing. You can ask Canadians, Australians, and Europeans why that is, along with the American base that watches us. Why Point Taken is fun. It is quickly becoming one of the better programs here on Spedrock Productions, on Twitch, and wherever you can catch the product. And then tonight, we have the second episode, like I said before, of The Territory, where we talk independent wrestling. where we do a live review, watching along with the rest of the internet, the Reality of Wrestling School down there in Houston, Texas, for Booker T, or actually it's in Texas City. Let me be correct about that. At the Walker Texas Lawyer Arena. And God willing, hopefully, tech wise, everything will be back straight up there in Pennsylvania. But we'll give you that. Also, if you have a moment on Sunday, 7, 6 Central or 8, 7 Central, just depending on how the boss feels, is Good Evening IWC. If you have a move that you saw this week in professional wrestling that you want to have broadcasted to the world because you thought it was so impressive, throw up that hashtag GEIWC Top 5. Beyond that, you have the Whole Damn Mess on Wednesdays, which is Sped and TC talking more than just wrestling. They're talking sports. They're talking current events. They're talking this, that, and everything else. I still think they should have a standalone Florida Man segment, but that's just me. And then to finish your week, or lead off your week, because wrestling tends to be more of a weekend sport than it is a weekday sport. Yeah, I know. It doesn't seem that way. You've got Big Mike and Sped. And Big Mike, he has Esteban. Esteban is a photographer for many of the talent you see out there in professional wrestling. His work is legendary between the Collective. Let's see here. He was there all Vegas week. He shot for Elena Black. He shot the House of Glory show. He was able to even get to shoot Lodestone. And I'm not going to go into the personal details of what EC, who EC knew. It's just he had the opportunity to go out there and put to his craft, and his craft is done real well. They may have themselves some special guests on the run-in. So we'll see how this week goes. We'll see how our friend over there in Pennsylvania, the boss, El Jefe, Spedrock, it does. But, as I like to say, I'll catch you from the cheap seats next week. 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, right here on Twitch, YouTube, and simulcast on X. Peace.